Well, hello YouTube, it's me Fortmaster, and welcome back to the game theory reaction. So, this is, even the trees in Minecraft have lore. So this is obviously about the newest hostile mob that they've added into Minecraft, the creaking, which, well actually wait, has it been added yet officially, or is it still in the snapshots? But anyway, they were teasing out this new biome called like Pale Groves? I think they were, where all the trees were gray and stuff like that. And then you have the creaking, which is a weird, like, tree monster that doesn't move when you're looking at it, and it can't be killed unless you hit it with, like, the sparkly trail points towards its heart, which is in a tree, which you have to destroy for it to be destroyed. But you can also harvest it, and then you can actually make your own creakings if you place them yourselves. It's a really cool, but also really creepy. I do remember when the first snapshots were coming out, people were talking about, like, oh, you can, like, grief players by, like, putting them in a hole with a creaking, because, oh, while the creaking won't attack them since it's looking at them, or since they're looking at it, they also can't break any blocks because they'll just constantly hit the creaking, which they can't kill. And like that, I think they fixed that, but man, that would have been really mean. But I mean, for a mob that's been out for so little time, I don't know where, very much where like any of the lore would be. Because like in the past, a lot of the lore, I mean, of course, there's been like lore that's been speculated on in the games with like the pottery sherds and stuff like that. Like, the creaking hasn't been out long enough to be in any other media or anything like that, like in the books or anything. So, like, where are they getting this lore from? I mean, we're gonna have to see. So, yeah, of course, as always, original videos linked in the description if you haven't seen it for some reason. Corner video linked to my film theory reaction. And yeah, if you like this video or any other that I make, I would very much appreciate it if you gave the video a like and subscribe to my channel. All those things help my channel in the algorithm, and I'm very much hoping to hit 5,000 subscribers, sometime this year, hopefully. But yeah, all out of the way, let's get this thing started then, shall we?
Minecraft's trees have lore now? Yep, in a new update, Mojang has created moving trees, a new mob known as the creaking. But what is this thing really? Why is it here? And what can it tell us about Minecraft's ever-expanding history? Well, if you're feeling stumped, don't worry, theorists, because I have the answers, and I won't leave you behind. You know me, I'm a stickler for detail, and a real sap for lore. And it turns out the creaking's bark may be worse than their bite.
Really? Because last I remember, they don't actually hit you for that much. I mean, we'll have to see.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, the show that's always helping Minecraft's lore branch out. Okay, I'm done with the puns for now. Instead, I want to talk to you guys about something I have been so excited for. Minecraft's new update, The Garden Awakens. Inside this update was a brand new biome called the Pale Gardens, a biome that Mojang says is
supposed to feel like it's dying.
And they nailed it. They've got new grey-colored moss, grey leaves, grey grass, grey wood, even the sky in the biome is grey. So, as a Brit, I felt right at home, but
actually, that's the thing. I mean, everything being grey, you'd think, like, at first glance that, like, oh, it's the actual type of tree and stuff like that. But no, I mean, I know there are, like, mosses and fungi that, like, grow on trees and stuff like that and turn, like, the leaves grey and stuff like that. So, maybe it has something to do with that?
it's the Awakens part where things get really crazy, because alongside all of these new grey blocks, a brand new mob has come out of the woodwork. Literally. It's called the Creaking, and while it looks like the trees surrounding it, it's a little more aggressive than your average tree.
Yep.
When you're looking at it, it'll be still as a, well, tree, but turn away, and it's lights out for you.
Don't blink. Blink and you're dead. They are fast, faster than you could believe. Don't turn your back. Don't look away, and don't blink.
Again, with the British references, Mojang is practically begging me for a theory at this point. So I took a look, and let me tell you, theorists, for a mod that just seems like another reason to hate the Minecraft nighttime, this thing is oozing with sweet, juicy resin. I mean, lore. From how it spawns
resin,
to
yeah.
how it dies, or doesn't, as the case may be, this one new mob paints a fascinating picture about Minecraft's history. And for once, it has nothing to do with the ancient builders. Hooray! Progress is being
More
made.
lore!
So watch your backs, theorists, because we are going to try and uncover the hidden lore of the Minecraft creaking. Let's start with the detail I've already mentioned. The creaking uses the same mechanics as the Weeping Angels from Doctor Who. The Weeping Angels were original monsters created for the show, with the core idea being, look at them, they stand still, look away, they getcha. However, that's really the only connection these two monsters have. The Weeping Angels' main goal was simple: send people back in time and feed off the temporal energy they left behind in order to stay alive. But we aren't getting sent back in time by the creaking, we're just getting bonked over the head with a big stick. So while it's a cool
And then
and
there's all the
definitely
difference in, like,
creepy
material,
mechanic,
like
I
wood
don't
and
think this is where
stone,
Mojang is
all
hiding
that
the
stuff.
lore. Instead, the answers are actually being hidden in the same place the creaking are, inside the
forest.
trees. If you hit a creaking, it won't take any damage, but you will get a trail of particles that lead you back to a specific tree in the forest. From the outside, this looks like just another tree, but chop away at it a little and you'll find another block known as the creaking heart.
Heart.
This is the thing keeping the creaking alive, so much so that the creaking can't walk more than 32 blocks away from it. It is literally tied to the tree where its heart is, and if you do as the game title suggests and mine this heart, the creaking will crumble before your very eyes. So while the creaking look like living trees, they're actually more like a physical manifestation of the tree's heart or spirit, connected to, but not physically the same as the tree they've spawned from. And once I realized that, my mind was immediately taken to something I've talked about a surprising amount on this channel over the last year: Greek mythology. I'm sure my history teacher
really?
is delighted that I'm putting that ancient history module to good use. Here's to you, Mr. Bastable. You see, in Greek mythology, there are these spiritual beings known as nymphs. These are basically the personification of nature itself, and they are usually tied to a place, a landform, or, you guessed it, trees. All of these nymphs have different names, powers, and stories depending on the type of tree or place they are connected to. But for us today, the ones we need to focus on are the dryads, specifically the subcategory of hamadryads. The dryads were the nymphs associated with
Hamadryads.
oak trees and were seen as the protectors of those trees, making sure they grew and that no one chopped them down. But the hamadryads had an extra reason to protect the forest. While regular dryads would just appear near the trees they were connected to, hamadryads were tied directly to the tree's life force. So if the tree died, so did the hamadryad. Are you beginning to see the connection? A personification
yes,
of
I
nature
can.
tied to the life force and location of a specific tree, namely one that is made of a type of oak. The creaking are Minecraft's version of the hamadryads from Greek mythology, which actually ties in really well with Minecraft's general ethos. The ancient Greeks had very strong feelings about respecting and protecting nature. It's why so many of their mythological creatures and gods are connected to nature and the elements, to show people what would happen if we didn't take care of the world we lived in. In one story, King Erysichthon, the king of Thessaly, cut down a sacred grove, and the dryads were so angered that they prayed to the goddess of agriculture, who made the king so hungry that no food fulfilled him, and eventually he ate himself. Yeah,
Ugh.
Greek mythology is dark, man. If
Yeah, it
you've
can get
followed this
very
channel for a while, you'll know that we
weird.
believe that Mojang has been passing on the same message throughout Minecraft. The respecting nature part, not the eating yourself alive part. The story of the ancient builders is all about what happens when you over-harvest resources and don't respect the natural world. Mojang, drawing inspiration from the dryads, is them going back to their roots. Only this time, the roots are fighting back.
I've said it a few times in like these other like Minecraft like theory videos that they've done, and I remember seeing like this old Tumblr post a while ago that talked about like Minecraft updates were like watching a post-apocalyptic world heal, where like you go to like the very earliest version, it's just dirt, rock, hills, nothing, and then you know some time passes. You get trees and other plants, but you get monsters, like the zombies and skeletons, like the undead, and some weird mutant creatures like the Enderman and the Creeper. But as time goes on, more peaceful animals like the cows, pigs, sheep, they arrive, and then other then civilization, like with the villagers and more biomes and more diversity and all that stuff. It's granted, like, I know that part isn't, tied into the lore that they're actually making in Minecraft, but I love just I love the parallels. It's really cool.
And for good reason. I mean, just look at this place. The Pale Garden is grey, lifeless, and barren. When I first watched the trailer, the tree textures reminded me a lot of basalt, a rocky block that is made from lava, and the particle effects and mossy floors gave me ashy vibes, as if the forest had been burnt down. But this dying aesthetic that Mojang was striving for really becomes clear when you consider the Pale Garden's location. While the Pale Garden is a new biome, it's actually a variety of the Dark Forest, and will only generate adjacent to that dark forest biome. The dark forest has luscious green leaves, rich dark wood, and plenty of flowers spread across the landscape.
So
it really feels alive compared to what we're seeing in the Pale Garden, almost as if those parts of the dark forest biome are dying. They've been over-harvested, and now the spirits of the forest have literally come out of the trees in order to protect it from those who would destroy the biome further. The question is, who is responsible for the destruction of this forest?
And the ironic part is, by making themselves different and stuff like that, by like the gray wood and the gray leaves, and having a special spirit attached that you can harvest the heart of with a silk touch pickaxe and like use it and like move it to other places. It's like they've just made themselves more enticing for harvest is the thing.
Is it us? Now that I live in America, I could see the appeal of chopping down a few pale oak trees for a white picket fence. But no, for once, this isn't the fault of us players, and surprisingly, it's not the fault of the ancient builders either. This time, it's down to the third most talked about suspects, the ones who happen to have a large, naturally occurring structure inside the dark forest biome, the woodland mansions. That's right, our culprits today are indeed the Illagers. Not only are these guys living right in the heart of the very forest that has been destroyed, but if you put any kind of illager near a creaking, whether it's a vindicator, an evoker, or a pillager, they will run for their lives. In fact, the illagers are so afraid of this thing that even a vindicator that's been named Johnny, who usually just goes on a murderous rampage of anything, will still run away from it. This creature is so terrifying that even the one that is on a psychotic killing spree is afraid of it. Maybe that's what Danny should have used to escape Jack Nicholson. What's even more interesting about this particular detail, though, is that they are the only mobs to react this way. If you put any other mob like a cow or a frog or even a regular villager, they just act normal. No running, no screaming, no nothing, which implies there is some connection here beyond the creaking just being a spooky new mob. These two species have a history. At first, I thought this history would be pretty straightforward. One of the illager's primary weapons is an axe, after all, which naturally would make you quite a threat to any forest. You chop down a few trees, take a few logs, the forest gets mad at you, and before you know it, you've got an army of tree nymphs trying to kill you.
The forest gets mad at you. Yeah, that's a totally normal sentence right there.
However, as I looked into it, I discovered that it goes way deeper than that. And it all comes down to this. One of the other new materials in this update. Resin. This material forms on trees containing a creaking heart when you hit a creaking. You can also collect them by breaking a creaking heart without a silk touch tool. But there is one more place you can find yourself some resin. The Woodland Mansion. Specifically in their item chests. And it's not just one or two pieces either. You have a 44.5% chance of finding it in any of the Woodland Mansion chests, which means the illagers have a lot of this stuff. The illagers weren't just chopping down the trees for wood to make their giant woodland mansions, they were collecting the lifeblood of the forest, the literal heart and soul of the trees, and slowly killing the forest around them.
I'm just trying to think of the reason, because like, what recipes is resin used in right now? Because I only assume right now it's like you can just resin blocks for like decoration or something like that. Let me check that. Blocks, resin brick, which you can use in making resin bricks, armor trims. Yeah, right now resin doesn't have that much uses besides just like a decorative block. So I mean, why are they so obsessed with it?
That is why the creaking appeared. They came into being to defend the trees from the illagers who wanted to destroy them. They struck fear into the illagers, so much so that the illagers had to stop using dark oak in their mansions, which is why their interior rooms that were built later on, used completely different planks like birch or oak. They even went so far as to grow their own trees inside the mansion with sapling farms. The illagers were afraid that gathering more dark oak would anger the forest. They are the reason the Pale Gardens exist. They overharvested nature's resources and it took a toll on the forest, causing it to wither and die. And now the creaking will stop anyone from doing the same thing again. But then why collect the resin in the first place, especially when it caused them so much trouble? Resin is only really used to create bright orange bricks that can give your builds a nice pop of color. But we aren't seeing any of those blocks used in the illagers' woodland mansions. And we know it's not because of their lack of interior design skills. You don't just build a giant chicken out of wool unless you have some real taste. Not to mention the fact that resin is a pain to get. It literally requires you to either attack a creaking directly or destroy their heart, which isn't fun when the creaking is trying to kill you. It's a lot of effort for the illagers to go to just to have it sit in a chest. So why collect it? It has to be for something we aren't seeing directly, but maybe it connects to the other factors we've already talked about. Resin is a viscous liquid that comes from trees, and it's used for many purposes like varnishes, adhesives, food additives, incenses, and perfumes. But when I went back to the Greek mythology that Mojang has been referencing, there was another sticky substance that came from ash trees. These are large oak-like trees, but with a more pale, almost grey appearance, very much like our pale oak trees in the Pale Gardens. The sticky substance they exuded was known as manna, a sugary, sweet, thick liquid that was considered an ambrosial food by the Greeks. Basically, foods that they believed belonged to the gods of Olympus, and if a human were to eat them, they would be granted immortality, essentially becoming a god themselves. This is actually the origins of the Greek hero Achilles. While most modern versions tell us that he was made invulnerable by being dipped into the river Styx, in earlier versions, like 3 centuries earlier, he was instead anointed with ambrosia to make him invulnerable. What else is invulnerable? The creaking. And when you hit them, you can see this ambrosial immortality connection happening in real time. Hitting a creaking releases 2 sets of particles, some grey, some orange. But if you look closely, you can see that the grey particles move towards the tree, and the orange particles, the ones that are the same color as the resin, move towards the creaking. The resin is what is giving the creaking its immortality. They shed their old dead particles and they are replaced by new resin to keep them alive. Resin isn't just some new useless block. In the lore, it's immortality juice. And
okay, and I mean, given like what they've talked about in previous videos about like potentially the illagers wanting to replicate, you know, the abilities of like the ancient builders. Wait a second, the totems of undying. I don't think you can craft those. You can only get those from illagers. So maybe that's literally how they make them.
remind me, which other race of beings in Minecraft have a heavy focus on immortality? That's right, the Illagers. In previous theories, we talked about how the Illagers were working with the ancient builders to try and defeat the Wither using the trial chambers, which is why there are pillager outpost-like structures down in the ancient cities. But after the devastation of both the Wither, the Warden, and their ancient builder friends abandoning them for the end, they knew they had to protect themselves. They began experimenting with life and death, figuring out how to control souls, turning the Allay into the Vex, villagers into Ravagers, and bringing zombies to life. But most importantly, they created Totems of Undying, an item that stops you perishing after a fatal blow. It also gives you a bunch of buffs, including regeneration and fire resistance, all to keep you alive for longer, to try and make you immortal. This is why the Illagers were really harvesting the forest. They were doing whatever they could to get their hands on the power of immortality. This resin, this ambrosia, this food of the gods would be the perfect thing to protect themselves from the threats of this world after the ancient builders, their protectors since the days of legend, left them to die in the overworld. Using this resin, they could create their totems. But now, there are nymphs haunting the forests, spirits of the trees that the Illagers can't kill, and so they run away in fear. Even the trees that were supposed to be the solution to their survival were betraying them, just like the ancient builders they once trusted. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory! Thanks for watching.
Okay, now I'm wondering... I wonder if eventually they'll actually add like a crafting recipe for Totems of Undying in, you know, Minecraft. I mean, if it, at the very least, if they don't, I mean, this is like a solid bedrock for somebody to at least make a mod, like craftable totems, and they require resin and stuff like that. And maybe lapis as well. Who knows? I mean, it'd be cool. Awesome. Really awesome. Oh, God. Again, like, all these little connections that this is the reason I watch, you know, game theory and film theory and stuff like that. Just all these little connections that you just don't think of, like, off the top of your head, or even, like, deep into your head, for, you know, lack of a better saying. Again, like, of all the things you could pull from to add lore to Minecraft, Greek mythology. Honestly, perfect. Absolutely great. But yeah, that's going to be it for now. So, yeah, of course, as always, original video is linked in the description if you haven't seen it yet for some reason. Corner video will lead to my film theory reaction. And yeah, with all that out of the way, I hope you guys liked. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.